it off to one side. Hi there. Thanks for having me in today. It's my pleasure to be here. This project of mine, I am not a numbers person. I was a history major in college, and I stopped math at about 11th grade. And if my Algebra 2 teacher were here, he couldn't stop laughing, I'm sure, because nobody would seem less sort of appropriate to be pursuing this theme than me. But, you know, because I was a history major, and I really do think that what is happening is changing history, and it is that we're producing all of this digital data, and that data is letting a group of people that I call the numerati, but you could call them statisticians, mathematicians, computer scientists, electrical engineers, whatever they happen to be, letting them for the first time dig into human behavior. And their work, I think, is reshaping entire industries and creating new industries, and throwing other ones for a real loop, including my own. So this book started when I was doing this story on math, and I won't go into details of why I started doing a story on math, but suffice to say that the editor-in-chief of Business Week wanted somebody not too brainy to do a math story. And I was at IBM Research, and I was talking to the head of their stochastic analysis division, a Syrian-born mathematician named Samer Takriti. And he was telling me that IBM was studying the data of 50,000 of their consultants and endeavoring to build predictive mathematical models of 50,000 consultants so that they could deploy them more efficiently at IBM and put them on jobs in which they would thrive and be more fulfilled. And so when he was saying that to me, I thought, well, if IBM can do this by analyzing the data of their consultants, then other companies in other industries must be able to analyze data as well and to figure us out and predict us and optimize us as consumers of advertising, as patients, as potential terrorists, and almost every realm of human activity. And that's where I got the idea for my cover story. And I have to tell you, when I was working on this cover story, it was just known in Business Week as the math story. And the art people couldn't believe that we would actually put math on the cover. And they'd come to me and say, what's the art for the cover? And I'd say, well, I don't know. And they'd say, you better get something like maybe Paris Hilton as a dumb blonde who doesn't understand math, or some kind of basically get sex into the cover, or math isn't going to make it. So I actually went on to Flickr has this program where you can mock up magazine covers, and I mocked up a couple of Business Week covers, one with Paris Hilton. It said something like, read to me in numbers. Anyway, it ended up, they published the article. It was called Math Will Rock Your World. This came out like 3 years ago. And it turned out that it sold really well. It got clicked all over the place. People were really interested in this theme because they understood what a huge change was happening. And the book sold in like 12 hours. And my editor of the book, I sold the book under the name The Age of Numbers. And my editor said, that sounds, she called me up about a week after she bought it. She said, that sounds kind of static, like it has Doric columns on the cover of the book. Can we get something a little livelier? So we came up with the name The Numerati. And she said, let's focus on terrorists, patients, workers, and she insisted that we include a chapter on computer dating, which we would call lovers. I think she was thinking about marketing the thing. Anyway, the first area that I went into was advertising, because advertising is the perfect realm for this type of data analysis, in part because you can afford to make so many mistakes. It's so horribly imprecise that there's so much low-hanging fruit out there that any understanding that you can get of your consumer really can improve your offering. And so it seemed like a good place to start. So I went out to Yahoo, and they gather, last year they reported they gathered 2,500 bits of data about each of their 250 million consumers every month. So I went to the head of research at Yahoo, Prabhakar Raghavan, and I wanted to get an idea of how you find individuals in this enormous mountain of data, what the challenges were. And my editor was extremely interested. She told me many times, find the individual. The reader wants to know, what about me? How are they understanding me? They don't want to know about groups. So I went to Raghavan out in Sunnyvale and I said, how do you find the individual in this mountain of data? And he laughed at me and said, are you kidding? We don't care about individuals. He said, ideally, maybe someday we'll care about the individual, but right now we want to make money. And so we have to look at groups. But he talked to me about the challenges of managing such enormous mountains of data. The first challenge is that storage is growing faster than Moore's law. So this means that our data is piling up faster than our ability to read and analyze it. That means that we could be overwhelmed with data and actually become stupider as it piles up. And the only way to bridge this gap between the amount of data that's piling up and the processing power that we have is human intelligence. Humans writing really smart algorithms have to figure out which parts of the data are relevant and which parts to look at. The other issue he pointed out is that you have to look for something relevant to your business. And he gave me the example of Portuguese red wine. Because sometimes he said you can get too much you can have too much data and too much information, and it can send you off on a wild goose chase. He said, imagine that he knew that I lived in Montclair. He said, imagine that you in Montclair buy a bottle of red Portuguese wine. Now, somebody has the data that you bought that bottle of red Portuguese wine, and that 3 other people in Clifton bought the same wine, and somebody over in Nutley bought the same wine, and 13 people in Newark bought the same wine. And then you can, if you want to, try to figure out what all these drinkers of red Portuguese wine have in common. And you could start looking at their neighborhood income, you could look at cars, you could look at whatever data you have. You could spend a lot of time trying to draw some kind of correlation among all these people. But then if you analyze it and you use your human brain instead of your machine one, you think, oh, well, the people in Nutley and Clifton and Montclair bought the bottle of red Portuguese wine because they wanted a $10 bottle of red wine, and the people in Newark are Portuguese. And so you could spend a lot of time trying to put those people in one group and they don't belong there.